Well, class, today, as promised, we're going to take your questions to Colonel Davy Crockett and let him tell you a little bit about what his life was like. All right, Colonel Crockett, why don't you tell the kids a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Davy Crockett. I'm half horse, half alligator, with a little bit of the snapping turtle thrown in just for spice. I got the fastest horse, the meanest dog, and the prettiest sister in all the district. My paw can whip his weight in wildcats, and I can whip my paw. I can ride a lightning bolt, and I've jumped across the Mississippi. But you know, that ain't exactly true. That there's what you call legend. Some folks call it a myth. In reality, my name is David Crockett, lately a congressman from the canebrake of Tennessee. I've been known for my peculiar adventures, and the reason why I'm here today is that your schoolmaster asked me to set the record straight, perhaps to let folks know the real David Crockett and not Davy. In fact, I never liked being called Davy. I was David.
All right, we've got a few questions from the kids here. We'll start out with a question that both Addison and Eric had. What was it like living on the frontier back then?
What was it like? Well, let me answer that by asking you all something, young scholars. Imagine waking up in a cabin, logs like what you see here, dirt floor, the fireplace was your only heat, and an open window was your only coolness during the summertime. Imagine no running water, no electricity. You lived by candlelight and lantern. You had to go into a little attached building outside called an outhouse to take care of your personal needs. You slept in a bed, as I did, with your brothers and sisters until you were old enough to get out of that house. No internet, no electricity. Don't think many of y'all would enjoy that. I didn't have any choice. I didn't know nothing else.
All right. Valencia wants to know, did you have any siblings?
Oh, yes, I did. You see, I had 6. I was born the 5th of 7 children. I slept in a bed, a pine-strung, corn-shuck bed with 3 of my brothers. We all lived in the same room, Ma, Pa, and all the kids, until my Pa opened up a tavern and we had a little room upstairs.
Let's see. Harrison and Scott would like to know, how old were you when you started using a rifle and hunting?
I had to be old enough where the rifle would knock me down with its recoil. I was 10 years old the first time I shot my rifle and shot a bear.
Katie wants to know, what was the hardest thing in your life?
You know, growing up as I did, that would be considered very hard for you all. If you wanted to eat, you had to either grow it or shoot it. I saw a lot of hardship along the way. I saw folks die. I saw Indians burnt to death. I saw the results of famine and disease. But I have to tell you, the hardest thing I ever saw in my life live through was the death of my beloved wife, Polly. I married Polly Finley in 1806, and we loved each other with a passion unlike anything you'd ever want to know. I went off to the Indian War, and soon after I came back, we had our 3rd child together, Arthur, and Polly died soon after from complications of childbirth, and I never, ever thought I'd get over that. And even though I suffered from malaria and even nearly drowned once, nothing was as hard as losing Polly.
Zoe wants to know, besides what eventually will lead to your death, what was your biggest regret in life?
Not making any money and keeping it. I could never, ever hold on to any money. I had many enterprises that I pursued. I even had a distillery for whiskey, and it burnt to the ground. I tried to make a good living for my family, but other than hunting bears, I could not save no money to save my life. Now, after Polly died, I married a widow woman named Elizabeth Patton. Her husband was killed in the Creek Indian War, and she had some money, and I went through all that.
Scott wants to know, why are you famous? And Elise wants to know, did you want to be famous?
Did I want to be famous? Well, I'd be lying if I didn't say I didn't like all the attention. Of course, the attention got me places in my life. Stories that were being told to me when I was younger got me into the Tennessee Assembly and later on into Congress. But fame is not what it's not all cracked up to, because you got to live it. You got to try to live the legend, as it were. When I come down here to Texas, everybody thought, well, there's Davy Crockett's here. We're going to win the war, and we can whoop Santa Ana single-handed because Davy's here. I got a little weary of my fame by the time I came down here.
So Luke and Robert want to know, why did you go to Texas?
You probably think I came down here to fight, to help the people of Texas ward off that dictator Santa Ana, and to free the people and to start a republic. Well, I came down here to make money and to get some land. That's what everybody did at that time. As your schoolmasters probably told you, young scholars, Texas was the land of beginning again. So many people that couldn't make it up there in the north came to Texas. They'd abandoned their cabins with the letters GTT standing for Gone to Texas carved on the front door. You know, William Travis came down here to escape debt, and he abandoned his wife. Jim Bowie, with that big knife of his, came down here to see how much more money he could make, and got involved and married into the Mexican aristocracy because he was running slaves with the pirate Jean Lafitte. Came down here to make a name for ourselves. It just so happens that tied into everything else that occurred.
Carlos wanted to know, how did you feel about the Texas government?
I felt if it was a true democracy where the people had their voice, I would be all for it. In fact, when I took the oath of allegiance to the government in Nacogdoches, when I come to Texas, I said I would not swear allegiance until the words Democratic Republic was placed in the oath. I thought the people had a good idea if they just kept the hog thieves and self-promoting politicians out of it all.
Kate wants to know, who were your best friends in the Revolution?
You know, when I come down here, I didn't have time to make any close friends. Now, because of stories and moving pictures and so forth, people think that Jim Bowie and Buck Travis were my closest friends, and that's not really the case. I had one friend that joined me when I left Tennessee, and his name was Makaja Autry, and we were pretty close. That was about it.
Let's see. Eric wants to know, what made you want to fight at the Alamo?
I didn't want to fight at the Alamo. I didn't have a choice. I took an oath of allegiance to the government, and in return for the promise of several leagues of land and several acres, I had to put in at least 6 months as a volunteer. So I really didn't have a choice. And the time I came down here, I'd heard that Santa Ana was turned tail and ran back in the Mayco after his brother-in-law, General Cause, was whooped in San Antonio. So I just thought, well, I'll come down here and throw my hat in the ring for being in the service. I had no idea it was going to turn into what it turned into.
And finally, Nicholas, Denise, and Luis want to know, what was it like during the battle?
What was it like? There was maybe less than 200 of us, well, a little over that after we got the reinforcements from Gonzales. We're in this 3-acre compound. Our water came through a well and a key that was dug across the main courtyard field. It was cold, it was rainy, we run out of coffee, and the whole time we were there, Santa Ana serenaded us with cannonade every day. And we started to get frazzled and nervous and didn't know what was going to happen to us next. It was not in any way an ideal situation. I didn't like being hemmed up behind them walls, and I wouldn't have minded just walking out and being killed in the open. When you see them moving pictures and read them stories, you think that it was just a wonderful place to be as we were waiting for the attack, and it wasn't. It was a place filled with anxiety, fear, and like I said, it was cold and rainy and not a pleasant place. So remember, no war is romantic. No war is exciting enough that you really want to be a part of it. In fact, they gave me the reputation of being an engine fighter, and I just worked as a scout and a hunter for game when I was in the engine war. I was only in one battle in my entire life. I got myself in a situation that I could not get out of. However, all them men that were down at that Alamo, they stayed. I could have got out. You could have gotten out and tried to make our way out. In fact, if it was just old David from Tennessee, I'd have taken my chances and jumped over the wall. But Davy Crockett was being watched. Davy Crockett had to stay there to give some hope to the men and women in the Alamo down there in Bayport.
Any last words of advice you might give the kids before we go?
I've always lived by one maxim, motto: be sure you're always right, then go ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, continue your schooling, become educated, find something in life that you love to do, and do it, and do so proudly, and do so knowing that while you're in Texas, there was a lot of blood spilled to give you what you have now. Live up to that. So I thank you, and may the Lord bless you.